The biting wind tore through the empty, snow-covered field as Noah's breath came out in frozen clouds. Ahead, a motionless figure lay shrouded in white. A small, trembling dog curled tightly around something barely visible beneath the icy blanket. A silent plea for help hung in the frigid air. Noah's heart pounded as he stepped closer, the crunch of snow loud in the stillness. What was hidden beneath the dog's fragile warmth wasn't what he expected. A child unconscious and frozen lay trapped in the merciless cold, their fate hanging by a fragile thread. Nestled in the heart of a small American town called Cedar Ridge, winter had settled in with an unforgiving grip. The streets were blanketed in thick layers of snow, the once vibrant green parks now muted and still under a heavy white shroud. Icicles hung like crystal daggers from rooftops, and the biting wind swept through empty alleys and deserted playgrounds. Life seemed to slow down, as if the whole town had been wrapped in a frozen silence. Noah, a young man in his late 20s, was no stranger to these cold months. He worked at the local library and often sought solace in evening walks with his roommate, Elias. Elias, a thoughtful and kind-hearted volunteer at the nearby animal shelter, shared Noah's passion for helping those in need, whether human or animal. Both men appreciated the quiet of the snowy season, a rare chance to pause amid the rush of everyday life. Yet beneath the calm surface, a lingering sense of unease gripped the town. Stories of lost pets, broken heaters, and isolation circulated in hushed conversations. Cedar Ridge was no stranger to hardship, but this winter seemed different, colder, darker, and more unforgiving than ever before. Mila was just 10 years old, a bright and curious girl with chestnut hair and wide, hopeful eyes. She lived on the edge of Cedar Ridge with her mother, Amelia, a hard-working single parent juggling multiple jobs to make ends meet. Though life was often tough, Mila's spirit remained unbroken, a beacon of warmth in the cold town. Lumi the dog was a stray no one seemed to notice. She was thin and shivering, her fur matted and dusted with snow. Despite her fragile state, Lumi carried an unyielding strength in her deep brown eyes, a silent resilience that belied her small frame. Unknown to most, she had already faced abandonment and hardship far beyond the harsh winter nights. Fate was about to intertwine the lives of these two souls, one lost in the icy wilderness, the other fighting to survive against all odds. In a world where both had been overlooked and forgotten, their meeting would spark a chain of events that would challenge the town's heart and expose the truths lurking beneath the frozen surface. One crisp afternoon, Noah and Elias decided to take a break from their routines and head out for a walk through Cedar Ridge's Central Park. The fresh air was sharp and invigorating, and though the chill bit at their faces, the two friends found comfort in each other's company. The park, usually bustling with families and children, lay eerily silent, draped in snow and shadowed by bare trees. As they wandered along the winding paths, their boots crunching on frozen leaves beneath the snow, Elias's sharp ears caught a faint, almost imperceptible whimper. At first, Noah dismissed it as the wind or a distant animal, but Elias stopped abruptly, tilting his head. The sound came again, a soft, desperate cry that tugged at something deep inside him. Curious and concerned, they followed the sound toward a secluded thicket near the park's edge. There, amidst the snowdrifts and icy branches, they spotted a small shape curled tightly against the cold. Noah's breath hitched as he realized it was a dog, trembling and covered in frost. But something else, something even more fragile, lay hidden beneath the animal's protective embrace. Noah knelt carefully in the snow, his fingers trembling as he brushed away the icy crust on the dog's fur. The dog's body was frail, its ribs visible beneath a thin layer of fur, yet it pressed unwaveringly against something beneath. With growing dread, Noah's hand reached under the dog's curled form, revealing the small, pale face of a child. Mila lay motionless, her cheeks flushed a ghostly blue and lips cracked from the cold. Her tiny body was rigid, frozen in the unforgiving winter air. The dog, whom Noah later learned was named Lumi, had somehow kept the girl's body warm, a living shield against the biting cold. Tears welled up in Elias's eyes as he watched the silent loyalty of the animal who refused to leave the side of the child. Panic surged through Noah's chest as he shouted for Elias to call for help. Their hearts raced, the urgency of the moment crashing over them like a wave. Time was slipping away with every frozen breath Mila took. They wrapped her in blankets and lifted her gently, determined to defy the harsh winter and save a life hanging by the thinnest thread. As the cold wind whipped around them, Noah and Elias stood frozen for a moment, the weight of what they had just found settling heavily on their shoulders. Noah's instinct was clear: get Mila to the hospital immediately. Elias, however, hesitated. He worried about the potential involvement of authorities, fearing that Mila's situation might be more complicated than a simple accident. "I don't want to risk making things worse," Elias said quietly. "What if calling the cops scares her or her family? What if they don't believe us?" Noah shook his head firmly. "We can't wait. Every second counts. She's fading fast." Their contrasting instincts sparked a tense debate. Elias, with his experience volunteering at the shelter, understood the pain of abandoned and mistreated animals, but this was different. Mila was a child, and her life was slipping away in the snow. Noah insisted that professional medical help was the only hope. Finally, Elias relented, pulling out his phone to call emergency services, while Noah wrapped Mila carefully in his scarf, shielding her from the relentless chill. The urgency in their voices mirrored the race against time that lay ahead. The phone call to emergency services was met with static silence before a weary voice answered. Noah explained the situation with urgency, giving their location and describing Mila's condition. But as the minutes dragged on, it became clear that the holiday season had left local clinics short-staffed and many veterinary offices closed. Elias frantically searched his contact list, dialing every number he could find at the animal shelter. Most lines went unanswered or directed him to voicemail. Time was slipping away and the cold outside was unrelenting. "Noah, we need to get Lumi to a vet as soon as possible," Elias said, his voice tense. "She's as fragile as Mila." Noah nodded, frustration and helplessness swirling inside him. Together, they bundled Lumi carefully into Elias's car, the vehicle heater struggling against the icy roads as they sped toward the nearest open clinic. Every passing minute felt like an eternity as they battled snow-covered streets and frozen roads. The town's silence was broken only by the urgent hum of the car's engine and the quiet whimper of a dog fighting for her life and for Mila's. At Cedar Ridge Regional Hospital, the emergency room staff sprang into action the moment Noah and Elias arrived with Mila. Nurses swiftly wheeled the girl inside, where a team of doctors gathered around her fragile body. Her temperature was dangerously low, her breathing shallow and irregular. Machines beeped rapidly as they attached monitors, while doctors worked tirelessly to stabilize her condition. Meanwhile, Elias arrived at the animal shelter with Lumi, who was immediately assessed by a vet. Despite her frailty and severe undernourishment, the vet's prognosis was cautiously hopeful. The shelter staff prepared a warm, quiet space, determined to nurse the dog back to health. Lumi's eyes, though tired, held a spark of life, a silent promise to fight. Back at the hospital, Noah paced anxiously, the weight of the situation pressing heavily on him. The fragile bond between the girl and her protector dog was clear in his mind, each struggling to survive against overwhelming odds. The community, initially unaware of the story unfolding, began to stir with whispers and growing concern. Social media buzzed as a local news outlet shared the discovery of the girl and the loyal dog who shielded her from the cold. Reactions were mixed. While many expressed sympathy and hope, others questioned how such neglect could happen in a tight-knit town. The debate sparked emotional discussions on responsibility, care, and the unseen struggles of those living on the margins. The story quickly ignited a firestorm of reactions across Cedar Ridge and beyond. On one side, many were moved by the unwavering loyalty of Lumi and the miracle that had saved Mila's life. Local residents began organizing donations for the shelter and hospital, eager to support both survivors. Messages of hope and calls for kindness flooded social media platforms. However, beneath the surface, a wave of criticism and suspicion began to rise. Some questioned how Mila, a child from their own community, could have been left vulnerable and alone in such brutal conditions. Fingers were pointed at local authorities. Why had there been no warning signs? Why was the search delayed? Others blamed Amelia, Mila's mother, accusing her of negligence despite her tireless efforts. Online forums and town meetings erupted with heated debates. Advocates demanded better child welfare oversight and animal protection laws, while skeptics warned against jumping to conclusions without full information. Some expressed distrust of the shelter, suspecting mismanagement or failure to report lost animals. The controversy laid bare the fractures within the community, divisions over accountability, social responsibility, and the value placed on the most vulnerable. Noah and Elias found themselves at the center of the storm, caught between gratitude and anger, hope and despair. The quiet town of Cedar Ridge was no longer silent. Its heart was pounding with the urgent need for answers and justice. Mila's condition worsened rapidly as the night deepened. Her body temperature plummeted to critical lows, and she slipped in and out of consciousness. The medical team worked feverishly, administering warm fluids and using every available technique to restore her fragile life force. Machines beeped relentlessly, tracking each faltering heartbeat. Noah sat beside the hospital window, his hands clenched tightly, eyes fixed on the storm outside, a reflection of the turmoil inside. Elias stayed close by, offering quiet support, unable to shake the growing fear that their efforts might not be enough. The weight of responsibility bore down heavily on both men, mingling with a desperate hope that refused to fade. Meanwhile, outside the hospital walls, the town's brewing controversy reached a boiling point. News outlets amplified accusations of negligence and delay in the search efforts. Public forums erupted in heated exchanges, with some calling for resignations among local officials. The divide between those demanding accountability and those defending the community's efforts became increasingly stark. Amid the chaos, Amelia's presence in the hospital brought an emotional anchor. Her silent prayers and tear-streaked face spoke volumes of a mother's pain and determination. The story was no longer just about survival. It had become a battle for justice and recognition of failures that had almost cost a precious life. The public outrage grew louder as journalists uncovered troubling details about the delays in reporting Mila's disappearance. Whispers of bureaucratic red tape, misplaced paperwork, and understaffed departments fueled suspicions of negligence. Some community members alleged that the local authorities had intentionally downplayed the severity to protect reputations. Town hall meetings became battlegrounds for fiery exchanges. Parents demanded answers, while officials struggled to justify their actions. Social media became a volatile platform where facts mixed with rumors, fueling polarization. Some accused Amelia of being an inattentive mother, while others highlighted systemic failures that left vulnerable families unsupported. Noah and Elias, initially relieved by Mila's progress, found themselves unwilling symbols of a community torn apart by distrust. They faced questions not just about the rescue, but about broader issues of social responsibility and accountability. The dog Lumi became a silent emblem of loyalty amidst a backdrop of human failings. Amid the turmoil, a growing movement emerged, calling for reforms in child protection services and animal welfare laws. Activists rallied and petitions circulated, demanding transparency and justice. The story that began as a rescue transformed into a catalyst for change by forcing Cedar Ridge to confront uncomfortable truths and reconsider what it meant to protect its most vulnerable. Despite the relentless efforts of the medical team, Mila's condition took a sudden downturn. Her breaths grew shallower and the color drained from her fragile face. The machine's alarms pierced the quiet hospital room, echoing the alarm felt deep within Noah and Elias's hearts. Each passing second seemed to stretch into eternity. Noah clenched his fists, fighting back tears as he watched the girl who had captured his compassion slip further away. Elias placed a steady hand on Noah's shoulder, though his own eyes betrayed the fear that gripped him. Amelia sat nearby, her face etched with exhaustion and heartbreak, silently praying for a miracle that felt ever more distant. The hospital corridor outside was heavy with tension. Nurses whispered quietly, sharing worried glances. The fragile hope that had carried the group this far now teetered on the edge of despair. In this crucible of uncertainty, the true depth of love, fear, and human vulnerability revealed itself. Outside the hospital walls, the community's fractures deepened. Accusations flew like arrows, targeting local officials, social services, and even Mila's mother, Amelia. Social media threads exploded with bitter arguments, some condemning the perceived negligence, others defending the overwhelmed institutions. Conspiracy theories began to swirl, suggesting cover-ups or intentional silencing of the case to protect powerful interests. The once tight-knit town of Cedar Ridge found itself divided by suspicion and anger, each faction unwilling to yield. Noah and Elias felt the weight of this division keenly, caught between their hope for Mila's recovery and the growing storm of distrust. The once inspiring story of survival had become a battleground for blame and outrage, leaving scars that would linger long after the snow melted. As Mila's condition stabilized and hope began to flicker anew, a startling revelation shook Cedar Ridge to its core. Investigations uncovered that Mila's disappearance was no accident. The young girl had unwittingly become a witness to a dark web of corruption woven into the town's leadership, exposing illegal dealings and cover-ups that some were desperate to keep hidden. Amelia, Mila's mother, had long suspected there was more to her daughter's disappearance than a simple wandering off. Secret meetings, hushed conversations, and strange warnings had surrounded their lives in the weeks prior. Now these suspicions were confirmed as authorities uncovered documents and testimonies linking powerful officials to illicit schemes. This revelation sparked a fierce public outcry, one that suddenly cast Mila's rescue in a new light. No longer just a story of survival, it was a tale of courage and sacrifice. Mila's ordeal was not merely the result of neglect or misfortune, but the consequence of a larger battle for justice and truth. Noah and Elias, who had devoted themselves to saving Mila, found their roles transformed. They were no longer mere rescuers. They became part of a growing movement demanding accountability and change. The quiet town of Cedar Ridge was awakening from its frozen silence, its darkest secrets unraveling with each passing day. Amid the swirling revelations, another surprising truth emerged about Lumi, the loyal dog who had risked everything to protect Mila. Once the cherished companion of a high-ranking official implicated in the corruption scandal, Lumi had been abandoned when inconvenient truths threatened to surface. The dog's unwavering loyalty to Mila became a powerful symbol, not only of survival, but of redemption. Shelter workers recounted how Lumi had endured neglect and hardship before fate led her to the frozen field where she found Mila. Their bond transcended circumstance, embodying a silent rebellion against the betrayals of those in power. Lumi's presence was a living testament to resilience and the possibility of reclaiming honor even after being cast aside. This revelation galvanized the community further, inspiring renewed calls for reform and compassion. Mila's story, intertwined with Lumi's past, became a beacon of hope, reminding Cedar Ridge that even amidst betrayal and injustice, loyalty and love could triumph. Noah, Elias, Amelia, and Mila stood united, their shared journey a testament to courage and the transformative power of truth. Together, they faced a future marked not only by healing, but by a determination to rebuild a community where no child or creature would be left to face the cold alone. Slowly but surely, Mila's strength returned. The hospital room, once filled with the beeping alarms of crisis, softened into a sanctuary of healing. Her eyelids fluttered open one morning, revealing eyes that, though still weak, shimmered with a quiet determination. Amelia held her daughter's hand tightly, tears streaming freely as relief washed over her. Noah and Elias visited daily, their faces lighting up at each small sign of progress. Lumi, now healthy and vibrant, was allowed to stay by Mila's side, her gentle presence a source of comfort and security. The bond between the girl and her faithful companion grew stronger with each passing day, a reminder of the miracle that had brought them together. The community watched with hopeful hearts as Mila took her first steps toward recovery. Stories of resilience and love began to replace the bitter accusations and harsh judgments that had once divided Cedar Ridge. Mila's journey became a symbol of the town's capacity to heal, not just physically, but emotionally and morally. In the quiet moments of recovery, the true meaning of courage emerged. Not just surviving against the odds, but finding strength in connection, forgiveness, and hope. Mila's story was no longer one of loss and tragedy, but a testament to the power of human and animal bonds to overcome even the coldest winters. With Mila's recovery came a renewed spirit within Cedar Ridge. The town began to confront its past mistakes and the systemic failures that had nearly cost a young life. Community leaders, Activists and residents joined forces to improve child welfare services and animal protection programs, ensuring no one would face such dangers alone again. Amelia, Noah, and Elias became advocates for change, sharing their story to raise awareness and inspire compassion. Lumi's adoption was celebrated as a symbol of hope, a living reminder that loyalty and love can heal even the deepest wounds. Neighborhoods that had once been divided found common ground, united by the shared desire to protect the vulnerable. Schools held events teaching kindness and responsibility, while local authorities pledged greater transparency and accountability. Though scars remained, Cedar Ridge's winter had thawed, replaced by a warmth born of resilience and collective care. Mila and Lumi's journey was a beacon, guiding a community toward a future where courage, justice, and compassion prevailed. Their story echoed beyond the town's borders, a powerful reminder that even in the harshest storms, the human spirit and the bonds we forge can light the darkest nights and bring forth a new dawn.